If anyone still wondered how deeply under the thumb Prince Harry is, and yes, willingly, in my view, just look at the pattern that keeps repeating. He's a man unmoored from the anchor of duty that once steadied him, and into that gap steps a wife who sets the course and insists the winds will favor them if he simply trusts her. Listen to me. It'll all go the right way. The same promises, the same reassurances. And when the waters get rough, the solution, we're told, is more messaging, more strategy, more sparkle. But the longer this goes on, the clearer the dynamic becomes. Meghan calls the tempo, Harry follows the beat, and the public is expected to applaud on cue. Now, about the money. Because money always tells the truth of a strategy. The chatter in industry circles is that fresh spending has been aimed at polishing the image around them both. Not, mind you, to rescue the karma of that much-discussed personal brand. A brand that, to put it kindly, hasn't exactly caught fire, but to lift the broader narrative around their future projects. The logic seems simple. If you can't shift sentiment head-on, drown it out with better angles, brighter pitches, slicker partners. Yet you can't varnish woodworm, and you can't spin fatigue into fascination forever. Even at the giant streamer where their saga first sold so spectacularly, you get rueful smiles and raised brows. What's next? Is asked with more resignation than excitement now. It's a soap opera to them, great for clicks, just not the prestige, drama they first imagined. And here's where the temperature rises. We are told the new messaging push is being targeted not just at the Prince and Princess of Wales, but, more provocatively, at their children. Yes, their children. That's the line many royal watchers find most unsettling. The strategy, as described by those who interpret these moves for a living, is to frame Harry as a doting son, an outreach-minded brother, and a forward-looking father eager to reconnect his own young family with the crown's traditions. Neat, tidy, compelling. Until you slow down and ask whether any of it is actually happening or merely being floated to create pressure where it stings most. Inside the walls of Windsor. Before we dive deeper, a small scene-setting moment. This is being recorded, as so many of my dispatches are, in a quieter pocket of London with a hands-free rig perched just so. The city's unpredictable. You pick your corners carefully. And today, the light obliges. Thank you, as ever, for your company. Your notes, your waves, your patience. Right, back to the royal business at hand. Cast your mind back about a year. On a very well-paid stage, Harry declared California to be home. The dream fulfilled. The sunlit uplands at last. He loved it, he said. The West Coast rhythm suited him. This was the life. Fast forward to the last few days, and the vibe has shifted. He's in the United Kingdom with what looks and feels like a charm offensive. The dissonance is striking. After years of railing against the tabloids, suing them, condemning them, naming them as primary antagonists, he is now allowing proximity to the very outlets long accused of cruelty and distortion. Is it hypocrisy, pragmatism, or the sort of choreography that happens when a narrative needs fresh oxygen? Take your pick. But remember, for all the lofty talk about changing the media, famous lives still rise and fall on the tides of coverage. If you want to move on from the past, you sometimes have to sit down with its authors. Here's a personal truth. Tabloids have always been part of the cultural wallpaper. In New York years ago, a grande dame of comedy once told me to read the most notorious of them not for gospel, but for the sheer camp theater of it. Sensational, of course, often ridiculous, naturally, but they exist because we read them, and they shape conversation because we repeat them. The Sussexes know this as well as anyone, which is why the sudden thaw between their camp and select British titles isn't a puzzle so much as a forecast. When you want a headline to travel, you don't whisper it into a void. You feed it to the echo chamber, and travel it has. Depending on which columnist you fancy, Harry's recent UK appearance signals reconciliation with his father, a showdown with his brother, or a strategic pivot designed to flank both. The most eyebrow-lifting element, though, is the school whisper. The story goes like this. Brochures from Lambrook, the co-educational school attended by Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, have been requested for delivery to Montecito. Not a public application, not a commitment, just paper. A feeler, something that could be used to fuel talk of Archie or Lilibet reconnecting with their heritage and being closer to their cousins. The implication is potent. The reality at this stage is merely a pamphlet. Let's interrogate the logic. If the brochures have indeed been requested, who benefits? From a Sussex perspective, the optics are ideal. Harry as the considerate son and brother, the father seeking a British educational link because it did him so much good. From a comms perspective, it also nudges the Waleses into the frame, preferably with furrowed brows, so that any discomfort can be read as coldness rather than caution. And from a click economy perspective, it's gold. One school name, one school gate, 1,000 think pieces. But, and this matters, Meghan has reportedly never warmed to the idea of boarding schools, and that has long been part of the Californian sales pitch. Sunshine, privacy, a curated social circle, the modern values narrative. Lambrook, for what it's worth, is a day school experience for the Wales children. The "they've sent them away" trope is an old canard, which makes the brochure gambit doubly useful to a savvy PR operator. If the public thinks Lambrook is residential, the mere suggestion of interest paints the Waleses as distant parents and the Sussexes as family-first reformers. A fiction becomes a cudgel, and even if you correct the fiction, day school, not boarding, the initial sting still lingers because the headline moved faster than the footnote, all of which brings us to the king. Do not underestimate Charles. He has seen every form of stage-managed narrative in his adult life. The soft focus spreads, the ankle-high ambushes, the tear-stained exclusives that come with helpful anonymous sourcing. He understands the art of patience better than anyone alive in that family. If this is a charm offensive calibrated to impress him, it may very well earn a courteous smile and the most regal of non-answers. The monarchy does not sprint. It outlasts, and the king, whose calendar is the only one that truly matters in this game, knows the value of allowing noise to burn itself out. So where does that leave us? With two chessboards laid one atop the other. On the top, visible to everyone, are the glossy moves, the photo ops, the sources say, the school brochures that may or may not have been requested. On the board beneath, stitched into habit and duty, are the slower, sturdier pieces. Heir, spare, sovereign, state. William and Catherine occupy that second board. Their horizon is measured in decades, not in news cycles. They keep their children's lives boring by design, which is the single greatest gift the famous can give their young. You may fault them for being guarded, but you cannot deny the wisdom of shielding school gates from spectacle. Harry, meanwhile, keeps toggling between boards, trying to play speed chess on one, while insisting he still cares about the endgame on the other. When the flashbulbs pop, he looks comfortable. When the questions turn to institutions and responsibilities, the hems and haws return. It isn't that he's incapable of sincerity. It's that sincerity without discipline rarely survives in the wild. And every time the messaging pivots, California forever 1/4. Perhaps Britain has a role. The next, the story resets to its most damaging baseline: drift. As for Meghan, she remains the conductor, ever alive to angles, ever alert to minor chords that will swell into crescendos on the evening shows. If the play now is to float proximity to the Waleses through the schoolyard, it tells you she understands where public sentiment pools deepest, around children, continuity, roots. You don't have to smash the palace gates to rattle the palace windows. You tap, tap, tap at the nursery panes and wait for the press to do the rest. And if the scheme fizzles, you shrug. It was only a brochure. No harm done, right? Except that we've all spent a week arguing about brochures instead of asking whether anyone intends to show up for grandparents' birthdays without a camera crew. Let's also be blunt about cause and effect. Ordering glossy literature is not the same as enrolling a child. It is not even the same as visiting a campus. It is a delicate, deniable step, one that can be unspooled for favorable optics or snipped cleanly away if the reaction sours, which is precisely why it works. The mere idea that the Sussex children might appear at an English day school pushes every button on the console: tradition, reconciliation, rivalry, jealousy, hope. It makes headlines because it is the perfect Rorschach test. You see what you want to see, and yet, amid all the fog, one bright line remains. The monarchy will carry on, as it always has, by being less interesting than its loudest critics and more durable than its most dramatic exiles. William's stance grows firmer the longer the circus swirls. A streamlined crown, fewer distractions, dignity over noise. Catherine's role, especially during her own health challenges, has reminded the public that grace under pressure looks like quiet, not clamor. If the plan from Montecito is to bait them into a volley of responses, I suspect it will fail. The Waleses don't need to win the week. They need to win the century. So yes, perhaps brochures have traveled across an ocean. Perhaps a charm offensive has been mounted. Perhaps the tabloids, so hated yesterday, are handy friends today. None of it changes the essential equation. Until actions replace atmospherics, until consistency replaces tactical pivots, the story will remain a story about strategy, not substance. And strategy, however cleverly marketed, cannot hug a grandparent, cannot steady a wavering brother, cannot rebuild faith in a family that has learned the hard way how to outwait storms. In the end, Harry must decide which board he wants to play on. Either he re-roots himself in something larger and steadier than the next headline, or he allows himself to be moved, again and again, by a partner whose gifts are undeniably modern, but whose victories so far have been temporary and mostly Pyrrhic. Brochures go in the bin at term's end. The choices we make for our children echo for a lifetime. That's the truth beneath the spin, the dull. Solid truth the crown knows, and time keeps proving. As ever, we'll watch, we'll listen, and we'll separate what's floated to provoke from what's done to endure. Until then, remember, what you're hearing are claims and opinions, not settled facts. Treat them as such, and the noise gets a lot easier to bear.